Well, hello, Louis de Jaeger. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, it's pretty fine.
Yeah. And are you in Belgium
Yeah,
today?
that's correct.
Well, hello from Canada.
Hey,
Well, I thought you'd be a great guest. I have a big agriculture background in the prairies of Canada.
nice.
Big chemical here, not a lot of irrigation.
Cool.
And sustainable farming, I think the future is going to be looking hard at how we get through, you know, the glyphosate's probably coming to an end and other big chemicals. GMOs probably helped us early on, like countries like India, drought resistant crops and help feeding the world. So very interested to hear your take on where are we going from here and what you've learned. If you wouldn't mind, maybe just give a brief overview of your history and your education and why you do what you do today.
Yeah, no, with pleasure. So my biggest mission in life is actually to regenerate as many hectares of land as possible. That came like most clearly to me when I was standing in the desert of Morocco. There I really saw the end of like life, uh, the like zero succession. If we screw it all up, that's where you end up in the desert. And that was pretty scary for me to see that a lot of a lot of desertification has been created, is man-made. And I was like, well, if we can screw it all up, we can also rebuild it. And fortunately, there are a lot of things you can do to recreate beautiful landscapes, and that's what we're doing now with our landscape architecture firm, to trying to regenerate as much land as possible.
So what was the core driver of the erosion or the loss of land in Morocco? What was going on there that led to that?
Yeah, well, it has been the grain basket of Europe during the Roman Empire, like around the entire Mediterranean basin. They've been growing wheat, other crops to feed the Roman Empire, and they were squeezing out the land. We always think, well, it's bad what we are doing currently today with chemicals, and of course that's true. That doesn't help. But if you look even back then at the Roman Empire, they were already like squeezing out the land. And as soon as you try to squeeze out the land, then you desertification happens. Then yeah, if you follow the history, a lot of trees has been cut down, and if you remove the trees, you remove the water cycle. It stops raining because of the removal of the trees, and then you become then you get a desert. The good news is that you can like do exactly the opposite of what you have to do to create a desert, and then you create a beautiful lush green landscape. So it goes in both directions, and that's just super nice, and gives you a lot of hope actually.
Yeah, so countries like that, I mean, erosion is a huge concern. The flattening, I mean, down in Brazil, they're flattening forests at an alarming rate to create more farmland. I don't know how chemically driven they are down there, but probably similar to up here. It's all about maximizing
Oh
dollars
yeah.
per acre, which has become the global driver. Have you seen farmers successfully make the shift because you were putting your neck out there financially, no doubt about it. In Saskatchewan, myself, Canada, you're not going to be subsidized. To go organic, let's say you have to be certified organic for 3 years before you can sell your crop as such. And until then, you're going to have major weed control
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or weeds out of control. So what approaches have you seen or learned that guys are taking and might be helpful for the future that way?
Yeah, well, it's hopeful to see that this revolution is really farmer driven. So, of course, you have a lot of things that are going on that people from desks or activists who've never been on the field are doing. But when you look at the agroecological revolution or regenerative organic revolution, you see that a lot of farmers who are just conventional farmers are just like doing very tiny steps, and little by little they're improving. They're seeing that having certain things that they do have certain benefits, and one of the coolest benefits, of course, to have is that you start to make more profit as a farmer, and that's of course nice, because we still live in an economical reality. today, where you need to be able to send your kids to school, and then it's just impossible to like switch from one day to another and like switch your entire system. And for that, the society needs to have a bit of patience. And there's like a very nice menu items that farmers can follow. If you want, I can certainly go into more details. I don't know how
For
nerdy you
sure.
want to make this.
No, I definitely like to learn. I'd like to know the solution. So go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the basic new paradigm shifts is actually we come from a world where we see that microorganisms or animals or everything that is natural, let's say, is bad, and will interfere with the agriculture. I remember some university professors saying, "Yeah, Louis, in agriculture, everything that's natural is bad because it interferes with farming." And so that agriculture professor has been saying that for, I think, for 40, 50 years to his students. So imagine how much people they've pushed in a certain way. But the new paradigm shift is, no, we actually have to feed our pests, and we have to make sure we always have pests on the farm. Farmers are like, what the heck are you saying? We like spent the
Hmm.
last decades like fighting the pests, and now farmers are saying, no, 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 you have to feed the pests and be happy for the pests. And I'm going to tell you why. So one of the easiest things to do that we do at most farms we design is, for example, every 60 meters have a flower strip that's 2 meters wide, a very diverse mix. And so, for example, to get some beetles, these beetles are known to go 30 meters in the field and 30-meter back. So you have the two rows of flowers, they can go each way. And then, for example, they're natural predators, they will eat the pests. But on these flowers, we're also going to attract pests that can feed off these flowers. So we have pests all year round. And why is that? Because we want the natural predators, the good guys. I'm just going to call them good guys and bad guys to make
Hmm.
it easier. So we want a lot of good guys eating the bad guys. But if you like spray everything and kill everything, the good guys are gone and the bad guys are gone. But let's say you have some good guys, um, and they're waiting to get some bad guys to eat. But if there are no bad guys, the good guys will die as well. So in
Hmm.
order to have the good guys year round, you also need the bad guys year round. And for that,
Yeah.
we will, for example, especially create habitats in these flower strips, but also on hedges, hedgerows, where these bad guys can like survive. But the thing is, and that's in farming true, but it's also in natural medicine true, or in human health true, that like the bad guys really are in the minority. If you have enough life, the good guys will always keep the bad guys in check. But if you go and sterilize everything and kill everything, then it's logical that like the bad guys are more rough than the good guys, and they're going to be the one that survives. So it's not the fault of the bad guys; it's mostly the fault of humans creating conditions where the bad guys can thrive. So that's only one menu item I can share you, but I can share a lot of more depending what you
So
want.
would that be more of a focus on climates where you can grow all year round? I just think of us here where we have our bitter winter. We have one crop a year,
Mhm.
and pretty much everybody is continuously cropping the same fields. We do not rarely do we leave a field for a year and do summer follow on it. If we are, we're spraying it for weed control. We can't afford to here. So what are these solutions more tapered to or tailored to year-round farming or seasonal farmers as
No,
well?
no,
There's
no.
solutions.
I'm from a seasonal farming place as well,
Yeah,
so we
yeah,
don't have as much snow as you have,
yeah.
but we do have winters. And no, it works perfectly in places where you do have winters, um, because let's you're from Saskatchewan, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been driving through Saskatchewan. Really, really love the place. Really met amazing people there. But
yeah.
as you drive by, it's really yeah, empty. You know, it's hard to find a tree.
Hmm.
And one of the things you can do, for example, is really start by planting these hedges and hedgerows. You won't have any loss of yield because of they're all gonna prevent erosion. They're gonna prevent the wind of like interfering with your crop. So it will actually add. And these flower strips, they will of course die back in winter, but if you have these perennial flower strips, they will automatically come back, and then you'll
Yeah.
have this natural system. Um, One of the cool things, for example, you could do in the Saskatchewan climate as well, for example, is to have a mix of seeds if you grow one crop, where you have 95% a little bit later blooming and 5% earlier blooming. That's another trick, for example, these farmers are using. Um, then when you have the 5% that's a little bit earlier, it starts to bloom, it will get attacked by the bad guys. They will grow in numbers, but the good guys will come as well and will start to feed on the bad guys, and they will grow in numbers as well. So the good
Mm.
guys will like grow in numbers, and then when the 95% of the crop, it's the same crop, it's just another variety, a later blooming variety. When
Okay.
the bad guys then would want to come to eat the extra 95%, the good guys are already so big in numbers that they don't stand a chance. And those are techniques that can easily be experimented with. You don't have to do it on your entire acreage of land, but if you
Mhm.
start small by, let's say, okay, I'm going to try it on 1 hectare, for example, or a couple of acres, then yeah, these are the things that you can really make a difference. These flower strips, for example, it costs you not a lot of money in the big scope of things. You and you'll save a lot of on pesticides. And that's a nice thing. Like these farmers that I know, they some farmers that I know, they can buy like a new Mercedes car every year because of the amount they save in chemicals that they don't use. And they're not always like gone all the way organic. Some of them are, but some of them are not. But still, it's better
Mhm.
that like all the farmers go like to 50% organic than, or like 50% less pesticides, and like only have 1% that goes organic, you know?
We're starting to see a lot more spot spraying here. That technology is really starting to come in. John Deere See and Spray and Weed It, where they target just the weed to save the soil and save cost. And it's funny you talk about the tree rows, because a lot of farmers, they're ripping their Carigana rows out that were seeded God knows how long ago, decades ago,
Mm.
for a reason, for erosion and protection.
Yeah.
And now the farmers are sick of driving around them. They tear them out, maybe not really knowing why they were there in the first place. They know it's for erosion, but they don't care. They're maximizing acres. Um, it's interesting, but the two different varieties with the different stages of blooming. So I guess there's crops where you wouldn't even really have to go and desiccate at the end of the year to time it all for harvest. You just wait and let things come in naturally if you have
Hmm.
the right crops.
Yeah.
With crops like canola,
Yeah. It's
and
exactly
you do,
canola.
yeah,
Canola is a perfect example. That's the one that they're actually using this technique the most. Yeah.
interesting. So, can you the beetles? As soon as you said that, I shuddered because I think of flea beetles, and they just damage the crop. So, what kind of bugs? What kind of bugs are we seeing? And do they leave the crop alone? Are they eating aphids and other insects? Is
Yeah,
that
no, yeah, actually, they're eating the pests, the pests.
yeah?
Yeah, that's a cool thing, and I love that you bring up the Caragana, because I was actually just thinking about, like, for your climate, and I've seen it. Caragana is like amazing. It's like a gift from God, you know.
Mm.
This plant for your climate, and it's so good. It's a nitrogen fixer. It stops erosion. It's very hardy. So yeah, that's like the crop to plant in Saskatchewan.
You're seems like you're well versed on nitrogen and the whole story of the push for farmers to use to crank up their nitrogen use and soil depletion. Like it was essentially after the war you found that there was a rapid increase in nitrogen. Do you want to dive into how we got here in the first place with this? I'll call it almost destructive farming. I think in 100 years it'll be looked back on as destructive farming
Oh
for
yeah.
sure. But so how did we get to this place?
Well, it's very funny actually. So we had the Second World War, where a lot of factories were producing TNT. So they invented the Haber-Bosch principle, two German guys, to get nitrogen from the air. So 78% of the atmosphere of the air, what we're breathing in right now, it's nitrogen, and you need nitrogen to have plant growth. It's like when you pee, it's nitrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just invented a technique, get it from the air, and yeah, put it into to little solids, like in a solid state. And the thing is, so they had a lot of this nitrogen production for making bombs during the World War. They also had a lot of production of chemicals to kill people. That's the business of war, right? You want to kill as many
Mm-hmm.
people as possible. But when the war ended, you had all these factories and all these companies profiting a lot of war. It's a very profitable business, wars.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, damn it, we can't kill anybody anymore. That's horrible. What are we gonna do now with our with all our killing agents, with all our
Yeah.
chemicals? Oh my God, we can't bomb anybody anymore. What are we gonna do with all our nitrogen? They're like, okay, but
Farmers really weren't even using fertilizer.
yeah,
A
no,
lot of them back
no,
then.
nobody was looking for them actually. They actually really had to yeah, persuade farmers to go and take it. It was not easy. It was not like they adopted it. So the factory people or the companies were like, okay, we just have to pivot. Who can we sell? We can't bomb anybody anymore, but who can we sell the nitrogen to? And it's like, okay, yeah, let's put it on the farming, put it on farming land. And then okay, the same with the chemicals. Okay, we can't kill people anymore, but who can we kill legally? And then the pests and diseases, and they just pivoted, and so the factories could keep running. Right now, of course, geopolitically seen, it's good to have nitrogen factories running because like any second you can turn them into bomb making factories. So
Yeah.
that might be also a reason why people are like not, or like certain politics maybe are like saying, okay, but let's keep these nitrogen plants because we might need them if we have to defend ourselves or if we want to bomb somebody. So yeah, it's a bit a sad story that then farmers had to become addicted to it. Like for example, my grandparents also both were growing up in the farm, and they, like both my grandmothers, they had to fled to the city because the farm was not profitable anymore at that scale because of this green revolution, which is like not really green at all.
Mm-hmm.
Everything became bigger and they needed more inputs. And the sad thing is that you need to, like right now, to give more and more and more inputs to get the same result. It's like with drinking a glass of wine before you want to go to sleep. First you need one glass to go to sleep, the next day or the next week or next month you need maybe two glasses, and then you don't feel that anymore, then you need three glasses, and before you know it you drink two bottles of wine. It's addiction. And it's the same with our
Mm-hmm.
fields. They're addicted. And I know farmers that like right now they have to like add so much more nitrogen, so much more chemicals, and their yields have decreased. It's sad.
Mm-hmm.
And the farmer is not happy with that, and we've been pushed as a farmer by society to go in that direction, but it's not that farmers want to go there per se.
No, I think they'd like to be out of the sprayer. I mean, weed resistance here is a huge problem. We can't kill a lot of our weeds anymore. Uh, how do we control them? And it's becoming the cost of machinery, cost of land is through the roof.
Mhm.
And I watched in one of your talks that small farms are going away.
Mhm.
They can't afford to make a living anymore because the costs are so high. And you need to maximize your yield. And if you don't hit a certain yield, you're not making money, and you can't keep living off of insurance.
Yeah, yeah.
What's gonna break? We gotta change farming practices. One thing that you mentioned is GMOs. You're not a supporter necessarily of GMOs? Drought resistance is a huge desire and crop here.
Mhm.
How do you view GMOs in that regard?
Yeah. Well, maybe let's first start with the weeds. There are natural ways to control the weeds. For example, a technique that we love to use is temporary grasslands. It's not
Hmm.
possible in every context, but it's, for example, after 7 years of having a good crop rotation, you put it in 2 years into a temporary grassland. So you have it, or you mow it to feed the animals, or you have it grazed by animals for 2 years. And after those 2 years, the grasses have actually like cleaned the soil. They've pumped enough carbon into the soil because plants are carbon suckers from the air. But what a lot of people don't know is that they actually like constantly inject sugars into the soil. That's why it's so important to always like leave the crop on the field itself. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the Saskatchewan in winter, and if I'm correct, a lot of fields are really left bare through winter,
Yep.
which is very bad for the soil because you need to constantly be feeding the microorganisms living there. So after 2 years of this temporary grassland, you actually like scalp it off, just like the very, very, very thin stop layer. You scalp it off, and then you have like a fresh start. You can start all over again, and all the weeds are
Mm-hmm.
gone. So it's a really nice solution. And we also like to combine that with biomax, or like with um, green manures, but not just like one green manure, like at least 12 different varieties and at least like six different botanical families. So
Mm-hmm.
every botanical family has another kind of signature of sugars that they inject in the soil, different kind of root structure to like open up the soil. Some go deep, some go more horizontal, but they
Mm-hmm.
feed a different kind of microorganisms. So these microorganisms like keep the soil healthy as well. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy, but a lot of people or farmers don't realize that weeds mostly are a symptom of a bad treated soil. If your soil is in a better condition, you have less weeds. So if you combine, like every time you harvest like your main crop, you immediately sow in the green manure, um, like between that and your next crop, then you create more biomass, and you can like just um, uh, go over it with a roller crimper, and just like let it on the ground. You don't plow the soil, but you like do direct seeding.
Mm-hmm.
Like even in the same passage, like in the front of your tractor, you have a roller crimper to like crush the green manure, and that's exactly the same moment you have the direct seeder behind your tractor, and then it starts seeding the crop you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time when you like harvest it, at the same time you can already like direct seed this green manure, so you always are seeding something. So you
Mm-hmm.
constantly keep this cycle. And then when you're asking me the question about GMOs, am I against or in favor of GMOs, I always think it's a super cool thing and a cool invention that people are like, oh my god, we've created this, we've like tinkered around with this DNA. I love it. I'm a big science lover, and a science guy. But the thing is, I compare it with like when you have a leaking roof. When your roof is leaking, the first thing you do is you get a bucket and put it under the leak. The second thing you do is you go and fix the roof. But today in society, and I'm not just talking about farming, it's with human health, it's with almost everything in society. um, we just like try to buy better buckets. It's like, oh, now I have a bucket that's like 5 times bigger. Oh, now I invented like this lightweight bucket. Oh, now I invented
Mm-hmm.
like a self-driving bucket that can empty itself. So there's an entire bucket industry, and GMOs is one of them. GMO is a nice solution, but to what problem? To what cause? And the cause of the problem is soil degradation. If we would just stop degrading our soils and restore
Mm-hmm.
the water cycle, because that's also a big thing in Europe, but also in Canada, United States, everywhere. Amazon rainforest, Brazil, like you talked about. If you restore these water cycles, then you tackle the source problem. Then you literally bring back the rain. Some people don't know this, but you can bring back the rain if you plant enough trees. And I'm not talking like reforesting all our agriculture space. No, I'm talking about like even putting like a row of trees every 100 meter. You'll only have benefits for your crop, and it will like already influence the microclimate. It will influence storms. It will influence everything. And so I'm all in favor of experimenting, and I have nothing against people experimenting with GMOs. I think it's good learning thing. But like, imagine if you just put all that money into regenerating the earth, then you don't need GMOs anymore. And it's not in favor of the farmers, because it's like it's a subscription that the farmers need to have, and it's with everything. The people want us to buy a subscription for everything, a subscription for watching movies, a subscription for groceries, a subscription for our lights, subscription for our seeds. I think it's not healthy.
No, no, it's but that's big ag. and they're driven on that, and they're all publicly traded companies, and they have shareholders to answer to, and it's how to get more money. And just thinking about those changes, getting rain back. I mean, finding plants and trees that can grow well in Saskatchewan and in a temperate climate with not a ton of rain, getting that done. That's a nationwide effort.
Oh yeah.
That's going to take massive government support
Yeah.
and multiple generations of farmers to really establish the future of that type of farming.
Hmm.
And it's it's not unheard of here. There's, I mean, always ag shows and stuff where people are pushing micronutrients and cover crops and proper rotation. And now I'm starting to see guys capturing the exhaust off of their seeding equipment to get the carbon back into the crop and just using carbon as a fertilizer. That's starting to poke its head around up here.
Hmm.
It's almost just at the birth of going back to a sustainable way of farming, but it's going to take a major effort. I think the government will probably have to stop subsidizing oil and gas and other things and start subsidizing the farmer so that we can get it done. Have you seen that anywhere? Have you seen big efforts to make the change in other countries?
Oh yeah, I have. There are programs all across the world of people doing it, and you're right. I get it. You want fast and easy solutions that will happen in the next season. So you get some new foliar sprays, or you do compost tea or something else that like you want immediate effects, like restoring the water cycle. It will take decades, maybe even centuries. So it's really like long term thinking, and for that we really need, like, as a society, stand behind this. But for example, if you look at the Loess Plateau in China, they have planted an area the size of Belgium, of my country. They've like the land was so degraded, but they did massive effort to regreen the landscape. And the nice thing is, farmers are now coming back there, or they have been coming back there. People, profits have been rising, livelihoods have been life in general has been so much better because of the life that people brought back. They did the same in India. I have a good friend who studied the practices there, and they had some like water games there, where
Yeah.
the more water you could store as a village, like you could win a prize. And the crazy thing is, so a lot of rivers they dried up, a lot of wells they dried up, so they had to drive in water with big water tankers. What happened was, because of the efforts to capture this rainwater, so make sure that the water just doesn't flow away and like erodes all the way to the sea. They captured it, they let it sink in, and little streams have started flowing again. Springs have come back. Rivers have started flowing again. Imagine that, just by people working together, they made rivers flow again. I've been to Saskatchewan, like to these small little rivers. They were like dry as could be.
Yeah.
You can make them flow again, because around these rivers it was literally like fields of monoculture, fields, and then suddenly, buff, a little ravine, and something that like used to be a stream or a river, maybe with like some remnants of trees, but like you can really make a huge difference. And then the nice thing with that Indian project is that villages that have become these phantom villages where nobody lived anymore, people have come back from the city to there because the water is back. And that's it
Hmm.
with life. When life comes back, people come back. And it
Hmm.
really broke my heart. For example, I vividly see it in front of me. I was visiting a small village in Saskatchewan. It was called Cadillac. Don't know if you know it.
Very close to me.
Yeah, really? Oh my God.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Um, and I was there. It was a bit after the centennial anniversary of the village. And there was this very, very, very friendly old couple that like gave us a tour through the city and said, "Oh, that's this church, that's this church." I think you had like 6 or 8 churches in that small village.
Hmm.
Like, "Oh, this is the community hall, and this is that." And so I asked, "Yeah, and who lives here anymore?" And she said, "Well, like, not a lot of people anymore. Like, it's
No.
in 100, so imagine 100 years ago, people, settlers came, they started to build churches, community halls, buildings, all these beautiful structures. It boomed. And now it's like, I don't know, the average age, maybe it's 60 plus. um
Yeah.
yeah, we want to bring people back to those villages. there is
Yep.
so much infrastructure there. There's so much beauty there that just is waiting for like a new generation of people to go back. It's
Yeah.
sad that people are going to the city, like Cadillac. I really lost my heart in Cadillac. It's such
Yeah.
a cool place, and we can make these villages like flower up again.
Yeah. I grew up in a town about the same size as that and not really that far from it.
Which one?
And Cabri, Cabri.
I don't know it.
It's just to the northwest of there, not far. But it's, just broadly speaking, the daughters run off to the city, they go get educated and they like the city. Some of the sons, if they came from a farming family, they go farming typically. Getting into a farm, if you're not a family, if you're not part of a family farm here, is financially almost impossible. I know it has been done, but very, very far and few between. But those small towns, when the grain terminals moved inland to, Swift Current right by there, move all the grain terminals in. My hometown used to have 8 or 9 grain terminals. Now there's one left that's privately owned, I think.
Yeah.
It just crushes these communities. The biggest problem with that too, as I was listening to you, is water retention here.
Yeah.
Being that we're not irrigated, we have so much compaction in our farmland. The water doesn't sink into the ground hardly anymore. We've got to battle compaction. It's very expensive to do so. The machinery needed to do it, the fuel consumption, the time. You got to have moisture to get back down in the ground. We've had pretty barren winters lately, like the last decade. It hasn't snowed like it did in the 80s and the 70s, and huge snowbanks, huge piles. That's all gone away. But I don't know if we're in a cycle or if, like you say, it's how we're clear cutting forests and cutting trees down, and there's lots of farmers clearing grasslands and stuff and breaking it into arable acres to farm. And the natural cycles, we're probably just hurting those in the end because the moisture's got to come from somewhere. And
Yeah.
it's very interesting that you've seen Saskatchewan, because you know exactly how we look here, and it's just barren
Yeah,
farmland,
yeah,
wall
yeah.
to wall.
Yeah, but the nice thing is like there are some untouched places still that, for example, I noticed as well in Saskatchewan, and that shows that it is possible to regenerate the land. And it's also possible that like communities come together to change something. Like I remember, I think it was in Val Marie that I was,
Hmm.
not too far from Cadillac, and there they were like setting up this fundraiser to like restore the granary to the grain elevator.
Elevator.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and that's the interesting part, that like first I thought that like farming regeneration is only it's about farming, but it's not true. It's about community as well. Like we need to regenerate ourselves in order to regenerate the farming land and also to regenerate communities,
Hmm.
because yeah, a lot of people like don't know their neighbors anymore, and then it's much harder to create a change, because like why would I bother to like have this coherent community and work together for a greater good if like I don't feel connected anymore to my neighbors, because I don't really know them anymore. So that's really a big part of it. But do you know the nice thing is, and yeah, I'm talking about Saskatchewan again, is that like like people that I met, like all the hearts are in the right place. Like they're one of the friendliest people that I've met. They invited us for tea, for even for cake, and like like treated us as family. So it's not that it's a bad will or something. It's just like the economical revolution has just steered us in a certain direction. Now we just have to stand up and say, look, um, I'm just gonna do what I can do, and that's, for example, every 100 meters plant a row of caragana trees, or every 60 meters plant this row of flower strips, and like every couple of years you can like add a new layer and try a new thing, and that's of course a slow way, but slow is not always bad.
Yeah, especially when it's not being bought and paid for by somebody else. These, like you say, these people, I farmed for a lot of years in a third generation farm. You can't get out of it. You've got the land payments, you've got the equipment payments, you've
Yeah.
got to maximize yield per acre. And if you want to be that guy that picks a quarter of land and this is now going to be organic, you've got every farmer around you that's cursing you because they're out trying to kill the weeds that are blown over into their field. So it's going to take a massive effort
Yeah.
And we all hear the stories about our soil health is limited. You know, how many decades of arable topsoil do we have before we run into a serious issue where we do have to actually rebuild the soil health? And, you know, micronutrients and inoculants are definitely talked about and used more and more, not at scale. It's very niche. It's just another cost, and we can't guarantee the rain to get us a return on that. Like it's going to take a government shift, but unfortunately, you know, I think that politicians are just so intertwined with large ag that an abrupt shift or a, you know, strong shift is going to be, it's going to be tough to do. You know, Justin Trudeau wanted everybody to switch to electric cars. Every car sold, I can't remember the year, maybe 2036, had to be EV in Canada.
Hmm.
Well, why aren't we looking at ag that way?
Oh yeah.
And why aren't we helping fund this and finance the farmers to go in the direction that we want to go? Start getting the chemicals out of our farm, regenerating soil health, because we got to feed the world, and I don't think everybody wants to eat crickets, like Bill Gates says. So, and
No, I
that's
also am not looking forward to eating crickets. But yeah, that's like, and that's an interesting part. You know, when I was a kid, I always thought that like if we wanted, if I wanted to create change in the world, I had to become a politician. And I don't remember who said it, but somebody said like, yeah, Louis, you should go like just go and talk with your local mayor. You know, I'm from Bruges. I don't know if you saw the movie In Bruges.
mm,
Um, it's like a famous medieval city in Belgium, like they call it the Venice of the North. And yeah, I went to talk with the mayor, and like I had this list prepared of all the things that were like interesting to do, that were like, yeah, good for the planet, very naive. And he said, "Yeah, Louis, look, I have to tell you something. We politicians, we don't do anything." And I was like, "What the heck?" And he said, "No, no, no. What we do is actually we look at what's happening, and then we like support things that are happening. If we see a lot of traction for a certain thing, then we will go and maybe make a law of it, or do something with it." So that really shifted the way I looked at politics or life, and thankfully saved me of going into politics. So I
yeah.
never went into politics, and I hope I will never do that. um, and but if you think that way, then it totally makes sense to be the change yourself, and also to realize that we literally pay the politicians to defend our rights. You know, they're actually our employees.
Hmm.
um so we also have
It's easy
to,
to forget that sometimes
yeah,
in this world.
yeah, but
Yeah.
we have to remain with the fact that they actually work for us, not the other way around. And so we can tell them what to do, and the person with the loudest voice is heard the most. And the problem is that you
Hmm.
can buy this voice amplification, which is called lobbyists. um,
Hmm.
and lobbyists are storytellers, and they just tell certain stories. For example, we need to remove all the trees. They're telling that same story in Europe, for example, some lobbyists. They even made posters of like trees like boxing against farmers. You know, it really goes far.
Yeah.
It's really crazy if you think about it. uh,
Propaganda.
yeah, it's propaganda. And they're the ones constantly whispering in the ears, oh yeah, but we're not going to be able to feed the world. Oh, the farmers are gonna be angry and get their tractors and go to the capital and protest if you're gonna like take away their glyphosate. We know it's carcinogenic, but let's pretend it's not. Um, and that's when you know that that's the moment you realize that we have to create a counter lobby. We
Hmm.
can become citizen lobbyists. You and I, or anyone who listens to this podcast, can just like write a letter to their local politician, or like even ask a meeting with a local, or even a higher politician. um, it's not that difficult to become in contact with their with the teams that the politicians are working with. And if enough people are like saying, yeah, we really let's say want more trees in agriculture, and want like subsidies for agroforestry, for example, which is a very legitimate way of like putting eggs in different baskets. And that's a good
Hmm.
thing. For example, in Europe now there are subsidies that governments are paying 80% of the trees, for example, for the farmers. So those are, for example, very cool things that are happening. And the more you do this kind of lobby work, the more you can create a change. You can even have fundraising. Let's say you go and get $50,000. It's it's it is possible to get $50,000, and then you just pay one person for an entire year, to lobby
Mm-hmm.
for a certain cause you want to do. So we just have to create our own lobby organizations, and you'll definitely always find companies who have the same interest as you have, like put this together, put this capital together, and just like, yeah, pay lobbyists to go and lobby the heck out of the political system.
Yeah, and then of course they're going to face, of course, corruption. I think a lot of our schools have pushed the way we farm because they're just like the doctors and medical schools. They're largely sponsored by these companies that want you spraying your crops. We got to get that beat out of there. If we get rid of glyphosate, pretty sure it's only because a chemical company has an alternative, something else to spray,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
because the government says we're going to subsidize your yield offset just to stop spraying it. Do you think there's a food shortage in the world, or do you think the shortage is mostly created through political barriers?
Well, it's not even up to debate. It is just a fact that there is enough food to feed the world multiple times. Um, and like most famines in the past have been created by corruption. Even the big potato famine that the Irish had, where a lot of Irish people died, it was not because they had not enough potatoes. They just like sold them to a higher bidder. These potatoes, there were of course shortages. They had the potato plague, Phytophthora infestans. So there were problems. I'm not gonna ignore that, but still, like they had some shortages, but they just sold it to richer people, and the poor people had to die. It's the same in a lot of African countries, where corruption is the real culprit, or
Mm-hmm.
where disruption is a culprit. Like for example, if United States is exporting a lot of very cheap foods to save Africa, for example, local farmers, yeah, who like for example are like selling their, I'm just gonna say tomatoes at $1. If some aid organization is bringing in tomatoes, and then tomatoes suddenly becomes 10 cents, yeah, who's gonna buy my tomatoes of $1 if I'm an African farmer, let's say?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really an illusion to say that we don't have enough food. What is not an illusion is that if we continue to farm today, about 90-95% of our soil will be degraded in 2050. Um, if we keep on continuing to farm today, that's a prediction of the United Nations, and some people say, well, isn't that a bit alarmistic? Well, I have friends in Spain who say, haha, Louis, very funny guy you are. We only have 5 years left. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we would be happy if we had 25 years left. And some people have 0 years left. In Canada, in the United States, some lands are so degraded that you can't profitably farm anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're not going to have any choice to change our course.
I think that's one of the big drivers for the GMO argument is how do we increase yield with the same amount of rainfall? There could be an argument for that. I'm not really well versed on the health effects of GMO. I don't know if you are, but uh, what are your thoughts there with overall health with modifying all these foods to be drought resistant and carry on that way to feed the world?
Yeah, well, I know people who are like very strong about this, and who did some energetic testing with GMO crops as food, and they tell me that it's really harmful for the human body. To be honest, like I'm not a medical guy, so I really
Mm-hmm.
can't judge this. I tend to believe the people who are saying that it could be bad for you, but like then again, it's not my expertise. So for that, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna put my hand in the fire. I think the arguments are already big enough not to have GMOs for so many other reasons than only human health. But like I
Mm-hmm.
was in Brazil, and there they had like these signs on the different food products that says, "Oh, this is like transgenico." yeah, GMO modified. I didn't eat them, you know. I just didn't want
Yeah.
to take the risk.
I will buy something if it's non-GMO, you know, and organic, certified organic. I do prefer to go down that road.
Oh
When it
yeah.
comes to feeding the world, though, I wonder how much grain and meat supplies the fast food industry in North America alone. If you want to talk about a food shortage, let's look at all the processed food that takes a huge allocation of our farming just to supply the fast food industry. I mean, there you could
Yeah.
feed a country, many countries. You could feed Europe off of it.
Yeah, well, I like to play the devil's advocate here, and I think that it's not per se the fast food that is a problem, because you can have like very healthy fast food as well.
Mm.
It's never about the pizza; it's what you put in the pizza. The same with the hamburgers. It's not about the hamburgers, like what is the bread made of? Is it like with whole wheat flour? Is it like organic? The are like the vegetables are like real vegetables, or the cheese is like very good cheese. I think like one big point you're making is mostly the meat that people are eating. That's a huge problem, because economically it just doesn't make sense if you, for example, have to take 10 kilograms of a crop, feed it to an animal to like then get 1 kilograms of meat. If humans could eat this 10 kilograms of food directly, it's just like a huge waste of food if you first put it through an animal. It's a
Hmm.
difference, of course, if these animals eat grass, and only live on natural ecosystems. If a cow, for example, eats grasses and herbs and even branches and leaves of trees, um, then the land use ratio is much lower, and then it's perfect to and it makes economically, it does make sense to then, for example, transform the grass through an animal into food. But like having corn to feed to like cows,
Hmm.
cows are not even meant to eat corn. You know, it's bad for them. They get sick.
Yeah.
They get sick. Then you have to give antibiotics, and then these antibiotics get eaten by you and your children, and you become resistant to antibiotics. So then, if you, for example, are really hurt or really sick and you need antibiotics to save your life, it's maybe because you've eaten meat full of antibiotics that you now become resistant to antibiotics. It's like
Hmm.
addiction. Same with addiction, so that you can't defend yourself anymore. Like every year, more and more people are dying of very stupid things that you should never die of, just because you became antibiotic resistant. It's really a big problem, and the meat industry has, plays a big role in that. So we also have to rethink that, and rethink our land use ratio to make sure we get the maximum yield per acre, because it doesn't make sense to say, oh yeah, I have so much yield per acre of corn. I'm like, yeah, well, how much kilograms of meat per acre do you get if you grow cows with this? It's like, then suddenly become very quiet, because it's really, yeah, it's hilarious to think how little meat kilograms per acre you get if you feed your cow corn or soy or whatever.
Well, it's just like almond milk. How much water does it take to produce a pound of almonds? Isn't it the almond, and the water usage is absolutely insane. I think it's the almond. I could be wrong
Yeah,
though,
no,
but
no, it's
it's
true. It's true. It's yeah. And that's the thing. It's this thing with cows. It's the same thing with almonds. It's never the cow. It's the how. The same with almonds. It's not the almond. It's how you grow it. Like in California, they're draining entire watersheds to irrigate the almonds, and then of course it's like the least sustainable thing you can do. But I have friends who have farms with almonds, and they don't irrigate it with nothing. It's just rain-fed almonds, and then, of course, these almonds are the best you can get. They're super nutritious. Then you can make, yeah, you can eat them raw or make almond milk or whatever with them. Um, and that's difficult to explain to a consumer. Like, how on earth can you like say, yeah, it's so I can eat meat, but like only if it's regenerative meat, and I can eat almonds, but only if it's like rain-fed almonds. So people are having a difficulty of like wrapping their heads around all this, you know.
yeah. Well, it's are you familiar in Canada with A&W and how they advertise antibiotic-free meat? And like you say, I think a lot of the antibiotics, we need them in the first place because of the conditions of our livestock. I mean, out in the pasture eating grass, that cow is, you know, a healthy cow. But when you start to finish them on corn and soy, and you know, there's a lot of plastic in feed that cows get finished on. The chicken farms, the hog farms, you're not even legally allowed to record in them and show people the conditions.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
you have people living like that, sickness escalates. Your use of antibiotics is largely on commercial farming practices, which we are, like you say, addicted to because that's where the money is. And it's going to take such a paradigm shift to really try to raise healthy livestock, you know, the hogs and the chicken industry especially, and get away from the antibiotic subscriptions. uh, I just, I'd like to wish I could see it in 100 years to see how we do it, but it's going to take a really big moment in our health and society, and frankly, defeating corruption. I think in a lot of levels to get there. And are there any, like Belgium? What is it? What is it like there when you come to Canada and you drive down the street? Do you see the fast food chains lined up, or is a grocery store a whole different experience for you there?
Ah, yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do when I go to another country is to go to the grocery stores just to check what you can find. Well, maybe to answer your first question, in Belgium there has been a real antibiotic mafia, where like people really like there was like this veterinary guy who got killed because he came too close to the truth. So it was really a thing, you know. Right now, um,
What was he exposing in particular?
like illegal antibiotic usage,
Mm.
um, and and hormone usage mostly, actually. Yeah, I have to.
So
Yeah,
farmers are getting it cheaper elsewhere, or
no, I was actually wrong. It's not because of the antibiotic. It was because of the hormones that he got killed. So in Belgium, it's illegal to use hormones,
Mhm.
and there was like this time where you had a lot of cowboys going around and just like yeah doing it like secretively,
Mhm.
and so a veterinary like came too close to the truth and they just shot him. um
Wow.
but right now, like hormones are 100% forbidden. You can't use them anymore. But people, some farmers did use antibiotics as hormones,
Mhm.
because if you give antibiotics to a certain level to the animals, they grow better and grow faster and grow fatter. Officially, it's like also forbidden, but you know,
Yeah.
it's a gray zone where you can like cheat a little bit.
Pe- People are stuck on maximizing their dollars.
Oh yeah, it's true. But like, if you ask me the fast food question, it is true that like I really love America and Canada, but it is true that if you take long drives, then you sometimes really like have the feeling you're in a loop. You're like, okay, uh, you see all the KFCs, the Burger King, the McDonald's, the Wendy's, the Dairy Queen, the yeah, whatever you all have, just like then Walmart, and then yeah, in Canada you have other big grocery
Hmm.
chains. No frills, that's a Canadian one, right? The no frills.
I think so. We don't have one around here that I know of, but I
Yeah.
know the name.
um, and yeah, then yeah, it really it's much bigger and more, but Europe is, I don't like it, but Europe is also like a lot of fast food chains are really also popping up. It's also a pandemic around here, but of course, yeah, United
Traditionally,
States.
Europeans have been healthier, I think, than North
Oh
Americans,
yeah,
especially Americans. And I think it's for good reason. I mean, it's because of that. And I know when people talk about in Italy,
oh yeah.
you can eat the pizza and the grain and you don't feel the negative side effects that you feel from eating grain and
No,
flour from up here.
no. Well, there's really difference in eating a Domino's pizza or eating like a true Italian pizza. If you go to Italy, you can eat a like a pizza for €5 or $5, and it's like the best pizza you can get with local good flour and with good tomatoes. And you can eat a pizza every day. You'll stay healthy because they just use good ingredients.
Yeah.
Um, and that's, of course, we have a very nice heritage of these very honest
Farmers
dishes, let's
markets.
say. farmers markets, and that's like a cultural thing that I'm super grateful for, and that a lot of places in the new world in the United States or Canada, it has been lost. Like,
Mm.
mostly European immigrants came to the Americas, but along the way, not everything is lost. Like, for example, there's like a huge Italian culture in New York, for example, where you still have people like cooking the traditional way, but yeah, a lot of places.
Try getting ingredients for that though in New York, the flowers, and what are you going to be paying for? And then you got to charge so much for the. I can just go to the store and get the cheap flour, the bleached flour.
Yeah, but
You know,
still, I lived in the USA, and I've also been like living in Canada in a way that I've cooked with grocery store ingredients, and it's
yeah,
always possible to find good ingredients. I've never like not been able to, only if I like went to very small towns or villages where you like only have small grocery shops. Sometimes then you can't find, but generally you can always find something organic or like some whole wheat flour. If you take time and really look for it, like you always find something that's healthy. It's really like a discipline you have to have.
yeah, yeah. I did. I looked around a bit in the area. I was looking for grass fed, grass finished organic beef and chickens,
Oh yeah.
and just to find it. And there are farms around Saskatoon, Regina, big cities here. They're family run farms, they're small operations. Yes, you are going to pay more per pound for that meat, no doubt about it. But
Hmm.
it takes so much more to get there and do that, and to keep the farmer alive to be able to do it. I think there's an uptick in that. I think that the generation now is seeing more of the need for that, and the health problems that we have in our society based on our track record for the last several decades and our health. I think people are starting to finally wake up to the need for that. Meat isn't bad; it's everything around it that's bad. I mean, I don't think that a nice fatty steak is bad for you, but if you eat a nice fatty burger from McDonald's every day, yeah, that's a different type of fat. We
Definitely.
need fat to produce our hormones, and I
um,
think we can be a healthier society. We got to make healthier choices. But
and
you're a
yeah.
big believer. Go ahead if you have any
Yeah, well,
thoughts
the
there.
nice thing is that like people are giving a lot of money to cars, for example. I think the average in America, like every 5 years, a new car or something like that. You don't need a new car every 5 years. Like if you get a new car, like even every 6 or even 7 years, just calculate how much money that will save you in 50 years. That's like more than enough money um to buy this sustainable grown grass-fed beef, for example. Or people love to give money to go to Disneyland or to do some crazy um things to like relax in their lives, doing the most crazy expenditures that, that they like don't want to pay $2 more for like a better product. I always think that's like not fair.
No, we're surrounded by marketing where you got to have, the new phone, you got to have a nice car, you got to have a nice home full of stuff you almost never use. Then you go to the market, and the first thing you do is you complain at the price of the meat going up
Yeah.
and the price of eggs. And it's, but your new TV's on the wall, new this, new that. Like you say, holidays. Our priorities in this country are very skewed, I do think.
Yeah.
I don't know what percentage of the population goes to the gym and exercises, but I mean, I live in a town of 18,000 people. Those gyms could be slammed all the time, right full of people, but they're not.
Oh yeah.
We've got a weight problem here, and it's a sit on the couch problem here, and people got to start taking their health into their own hands. But
Yeah.
back to the farming thing, it's going to start with where our food comes from, and it's going to take, I think, major government support to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then you're a big believer in the chestnut.
Oh yeah, I love chestnut.
So dive into that, because I read a bit about that, and it's a really interesting take just on the flour production side of things.
Oh yeah. So like what I like so much about tree crops is that you generally plant them once and you can harvest them for like generations. Like I remember I was an intern at a farm, and I was harvesting leek. It was freezing. And I knew that like, okay, I harvested the leek, but next year I like it had to be replanted, and you have to like start over again every year with annual plants, so plants that only live one year. And so that seems like such a tiring way for me to farm. Every year you have to start again, you have to plow the soil, till the soil, um, kill all the soil organisms, and erosion happens, and it's just so much work to do. And at the same time, I was reading a book about a supposedly 4,000-year-old chestnut tree on a big volcano in Italy, on the Etna volcano. I was like, oh my god! Like for the next 4,000 years, I can like work my ass off, or I can sit like for 4,000 years under a chestnut tree and just have the chestnuts fall onto my lap. And that
Mm-hmm.
was really the beginning of an idea of like, yeah, well, why don't we base our food system on trees? It's like so little work compared to like like working and toiling the soil all the time. um, and if you look at nature, a lot of places in the world, if you leave it, things will become a forest by itself. Even in Saskatchewan, for example, if you look at the places that have not been touched, forests are coming back automatically.
Mm-hmm.
It's what most places happens. They're like, yeah, but if everything becomes a forest naturally, why don't we like have a kind of forest type agriculture? And then, of course, it exists. It's called agroforestry, um, and and the chestnut is just such a versatile nut. It's like grain growing on a tree. It's one of the most balanced carbohydrates you can have. And I was not too long ago, I was in the United States, in Ohio, and there they like presented me like this giant buffet of chestnut products, and I just couldn't believe how much chestnut products, how much things you could make of such a simple nut. I ate
Mm-hmm.
chestnut bread, chestnut donuts, chestnut croissants, chestnut beer, chestnut pancakes, chestnut hard drinks. Um, and then in the Netherlands, I visited this crazy top chef who like won awards worldwide, and he made chocolate out of chestnuts, like chocolate sauce. He kind of fermented it and did a lot of crazy stuff with it. I don't remember what exactly, but like you could eat the chocolate sauce, and it was like real chocolate. Um, they make chestnut foie gras. They make, yeah, of course, bread, pastas, pizzas. It's just, you can like fill an entire supermarket with only chestnut products. Uh, the thing, of course, is that you have more yield per acre if you have grains, cereals, than if you would put like 1 acre of chestnuts. And that's, of course, a big problem. You don't only want to base your food production on chestnuts alone. So the golden combination is actually to have a healthy balance between annuals and perennials, to have a field where you still have your regular crops, but then every so many meters you just have a row of chestnuts, for example, and then you put your eggs in different baskets. These trees help to restore the water cycle. They give an extra source of income. They
Mm-hmm.
keep the ground, they pump the groundwater upwards, they make it rain. Yeah, there are just so much benefits. And the thing is, of course, if you're gonna tell the average European or American or Canadian, okay, from now on try to put chestnuts in your menu, it's gonna be difficult. So I'm like
Mm-hmm.
all in favor of just creating super delicious processed products made of chestnuts that you can just like buy a chestnut cake. It's not it's it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's not harder to pick up a chestnut cake than to pick up a regular
Yeah.
cake. But still, with every chestnut cake you eat, you're gonna plant like extra trees, and we need those. So it's a win-win.
And you kind of said a statistic that if you substituted 1% of the flour
Oh
with
yeah.
chestnut flour, it would change our landscapes
Yeah,
with our demand.
yeah, and that's the thing. You can force people to eat stuff, but that doesn't work. I tried that with my father. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work. You can inspire people to eat other things, and that can work. um, but the third thing is you can just sneak food into certain products, and the Americans are super good at it. If you look at the ingredient list of almost any product, you'll find corn, high fructose
Yeah.
corn syrup,
Sugar.
sugar, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're sneaking like corn into everything. So if you can sneak corn into everything, you can also sneak chestnut flour into everything. Nobody will taste it if you have like 1% of chestnut flour in your bread. But if you imagine just like having a 1% perennial into any product, you're going to be able to plant gazillions of extra trees. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what the Land Institute is doing. It's based in Kansas. The Land Institute have created the perennial percentage, where they like inspire companies to like make at least 1% of all their ingredients perennial. And it's a huge
Mhm.
step forward. And 1%, it's nothing, you know. Nobody has the excuse not to do it, like if you're a food producer, but it will make a world of difference.
So what are your thoughts on orchards? Does that fall into forest farming? You know, the apples and the oranges
Oh
and
yeah,
all of that.
definitely.
It's big business in the United States. Um,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of orchards, but again, if done the correct and regenerative way, because the commercial orchards, they spray once every week, and
mhm,
like orchard regions in Belgium, if you go outside there during the growing season, you just inhale pesticides. It's
mhm,
just, I feel sorry for people living there, because it's, you just get sick by being outside and inhaling all these drifts of pesticides. So it's, again, it's not the cow, it's the how. It's the same with orchards, you know. So they can definitely be part of the solution, but if it's like done nature inclusive.
mhm. So you've sat down with some big ag companies. You've met with Monsanto before? So what did you talk to them with, and how was it or about, and how was it received? I'm very curious about that. Did they just smile and nod and then show you the door? Or?
No, they're actually very intelligent people. The ones that I spoke to, and very friendly, very kind. I also had a feeling that they were very honest, because like I thought that they would be like the devil as themselves,
Mm,
but they truly believe that they are helping the world, or feeding
mhm,
the world, and they truly believe that you cannot feed the world without their products. So they're stuck. They're just stuck in the wrong paradigm. They're stuck with the wrong mindset, or in a mindset that maybe has worked for a couple of decades, but like are not working anymore. What I do saw as well, and that was really funny, is that like the one of the first things that the guy of Bayer, like who bought Monsanto, said to me was like, "Oh yeah, we really want to minimize pesticides in the future, and want to focus more on farm health and even ecosystem health, and more sell more products to the farmer in the form of like an application you put on your phone, that's then connected via drones and via like a computer system that detects the health and make sure that we actually prevent disease." So they're not stupid, you know, these big companies. So they're also thinking about the future and thinking, okay, if we can't sell pesticides anymore, but what can we sell? And that's like monitoring and like saying, okay, now there's, for example, like a very wet period coming. What can we do to prevent this? And that's another subscription they can sell, you know.
right.
What I did learn as well, and that's like from meeting a Monsanto guy, just in a cafe drinking beers together, like off the record, like I didn't publish his name, um, is that, yeah, that I learned that they have pesticides that are forbidden in Europe, for example, or in the United States. But they just keep on producing them, and they sell them to Africa or sell them to third world countries. And that really makes me furious, because, you know, it's proven that they're very, very bad. It's forbidden. But then the same country that forbids them, still allowing them to produce it and just to poison poor people.
Mm,
That's like so unethical, and really makes me angry. Um, the other thing is, for example, with glyphosate, it's been proven so hard now that it's carcinogenic. Like these companies are just using the same playbook as the cigarette industry did, or the asbestos industry did, and succeeded, by the way, in Canada and the United States. Asbestos is forbidden in Europe, but it's still allowed in Canada and in the United States, although everybody knows it's carcinogenic. It is called the Merchants of Doubt. There's a very beautiful book called Merchants of Doubt, written by two historians who and researchers who like just put the cigarettes industry, the asbestos industry, all these big industries together and just analyze them and say they are the same firms, they pay the same scientists to keep on spreading doubt. For example, they did it with cigarettes for 50 years. 50 years of spreading doubt that it's not harmful, cigarettes. Now we all know it's harmful. They did it with asbestos for it took more than 100 years in Europe to ban asbestos, although for 100 years we knew it was carcinogenic and it's super bad. So it took 100 years of spreading doubt before we banned it, and now they're still spreading doubt because in the USA you can still buy asbestos. It's super bad, and that's what they are still doing. The big ag companies that are selling pesticides, they're still spreading doubt. It is known we should ban glyphosate, but they're spreading doubt.
It'd be a huge knock on their bottom line. And I'll go back to saying when you're a publicly traded company, you're stuck. You have to increase your share value, you have to make money for investors. And that isn't by banning products without a substitute or something that gets subsidized by the government. So these guys are, they come out of university, they sit in an office. How do we make more money? And that's all they know. They're just ones and zeros. They don't dive into the health, this and that. They're just on a board that has to make money for shareholders, and they're stuck there. Well, we can't get rid of glyphosate, so let's get lobbyists, and then you get lobbyists to support us. And no, it's not carcinogenic. It's just salt. That's all it is salt. But and then they ignore the studies. It's no doubt about it. It's going to come where we can't spray it anymore. But like I said, it'll be with a solution that you can buy from the same company. That's when you'll see the change.
Yeah.
I don't know how we get around that, but yeah, selling the companies off to third world countries still has got to stop. I mean, poor Africa, they've just been beat on with all kinds of different companies.
Oh yeah.
And now they're clear cutting. The farmers there are struggling too. Countries like that in Australia with these big open expanses of farmland, what do you think the shift would be there in those types of farming climates?
Well, first and foremost, I want to correct myself. Asbestos is banned in Canada.
I was wondering,
yeah.
but I was just relying on
Yeah,
you there,
no,
but we
no.
will correct that.
Yeah, it's banned it's not banned in the United States, but it is banned in Canada. I wasn't sure about it anymore because
Right.
I think in some exceptions you can there are some exceptions about it, but like most of the time, like Canada is like always, yeah, faster in banning bad stuff. So
A little
that's
bit,
good.
yeah.
No, so like, what can people doing in big surfaces? Well,
Like those huge dryland farmers in Australia where it's dust, those are light soils. The trees are far and few between. How do you change landscapes like that?
well, actually, micro and macro, it's basically the same. You can do on a small scale, you can also do on a big scale, and I would even argue that the larger scale you have, the more impact you have. If you have, for example, we have clients who have 2 hectares of land, and we are designing 2 hectares of land, and there you can do interesting stuff on it. But for example, we also have clients who have 500 hectares of land. We're, for example, regenerating an entire island in Argentina, and there. Um, you can think much bigger, and the impact on your own farm, but also on the atmosphere, on the ecology itself. You can really create a bigger impact, and so I would argue that yeah, the bigger you are, the maybe the faster you can go forward. But also, it takes more. If you are bigger, it takes more capital, of course. For example, planting trees on if you have 10,000 hectares of land, it's maybe not the best strategy, but holistic grazing with animals on the right way is maybe a better strategy. And then you can look at natural regeneration. You can look at rewilding, for example, and you can use animals to help that.
Hmm.
And so for every scale there is a solution. And it's not that you need to convince people about it, because there are examples in every single country of the world where people are doing it and are making a profit. So we just have to scale the good lighthouse farms that are out there.
Well, and then if you can think of it, if every 10,000 hectare or acre farmer did it on, say, 10% of their land, how much does that add up across the
Oh yeah,
country?
it's true.
It's a huge amount of land. So not everybody has to do their whole farm, but if everybody started picking off a little bit, and obviously, your government supports you in it so that you're not losing, hand over fist on per acre on that land, you're going to start to transform the landscape little by little.
Oh yeah.
Have you gone down the weather modification rabbit hole, and what kind of impact that's having? And is it good or bad? What are your thoughts there?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, I am all pro weather modification, but not in a chemical way, in a natural way. So so I know of experiments, or things with cloud seeding with airplanes, for example. I know that it can go wrong if you do it the wrong way. Um,
So what is that? What would that look like when it goes wrong? Do you have
Yeah, of
examples?
course. For
Yeah.
example, I think it was during the Second World War where they, for example, tried to manipulate the weather, and they, for example, by accident flooded their own village with like 2 meters of rain in one day or something. Uh,
Yeah.
or I think it was not too long ago. I think it was it in Dubai, or somewhere in the Middle East, one of the big cities, that they did some cloud seeding and they flooded the entire city.
Yeah.
That's of course not ideal, but
I think the Vietnam War, they also did some weather modification and had torrential downpours there and had big problems. I could be wrong there, but I thought I heard
possible,
that somewhere.
possible.
Yeah.
So I'm not an expert on artificial weather manipulation, but what I do really advocate for and really love is natural weather modification, and that's
Mhm.
something that we really should be doing, and that's restoring the water cycle with trees. If you know that in the Amazon rainforest, they did some experiments with looking at the isotopes of raindrops that fell down, and they saw that up to 50% of all the rain that fell was not created by evaporation from the sea and clouds, like what we learn at school, but was actually created by trees. Trees, they
Mm.
sweat, and with the sweat rises, then it condenses in the atmosphere, and then it becomes rain. But because of this rising air, trees also like attract clouds. Clouds can only go land inwards for about 500 kilometers, for around, let's say, 400 miles, let's say 350, 400 miles. um, and it's only because of the trees that clouds can go further, because trees act as vacuum cleaners. They actually suck clouds land inwards. And where you are, Saskatchewan, I don't know how far it is from the sea, about 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers.
A long ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're right dead center here.
Yeah,
So,
so you're really in the middle. So you need trees transporting clouds all the way to Saskatchewan, or to
mm,
no matter where you are. Like if you're far away from the sea than 500 kilometers and you don't have trees
yeah.
like connecting the coast with you, you're screwed. Um,
Hmm.
and the thing is, so with the air rising of the sweating trees, you create a low pressure zone. And if you have a low pressure zone, it will attract the clouds to go to that low pressure zone. And the trees, they do not only like suck the clouds towards them, they also like attract the rain literally, because they send out bacteria, fungi, aerosols, little dust particles. And when the clouds pass, they like bump into all these little particles. They like mingle with them, and they become heavy because they like attach themselves to this
Hmm.
dust particle, for example, that the trees emit, and then they fall down. So trees are natural uh, cloud seeders. They
Hmm.
literally make clouds, they seed clouds, they attract clouds, and that's the weather modification that we need.
Yeah. I think a lot of the areas of drought, you'll probably notice there's not a lot of trees.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just, we've got the Great Lakes. I mean, to the east of us, a lot of water there. Go to the north end of Saskatchewan, you go east into Manitoba, they have a lot higher tree population, but they also see more rainfall, and it's without a doubt no
Yeah.
coincidence. I mean, here, if we see, we like to see at least 6 inches of rain in a season.
Hmm.
We've seen a lot less than that the last few years. That is not a lot of rain.
Yeah.
We have to, if we could change that or find a way to hang on to more moisture, that would change our farming landscape, forever, and it would change the way we farm. And maybe bigger farms aren't the way to go. Maybe we could have more small farmers and start going the other way.
I believe that it doesn't matter if you have like giant farms or small farms. The thing is, we just have to do something about it. You can screw everything up with small farms. You can screw everything up with big farms, but you can also regenerate everything with big farms. You can regenerate everything with small farms. So it's never about the size. It's just about what you do with it.
So you also are into restoration, creating islands. What goes on there? What's the science behind there? Or are you just on the coast of Dubai making nice homes for people? The nice palm tree island.
um, no, we do regenerate islands, and the goal is to just, yeah, make sure that we create ecosystems that will be good for nature, but will be good for humans. Can humans play a part and, for example, build a house uh, on it? Yeah, why not? As long as it's done in a regenerative way, and as long as you're sure you're not, yeah, extracting. Um, if you're in the regeneration economy, where you don't create pollutants, and where if you, for example, flush down the toilet, you're not polluting the lake or the sea or the rivers, but instead creating closed loops, and make sure that the human impact is actually a positive impact, and then there is, yeah, so much more possible, and it's just another way of thinking.
So what's the demand for the island regeneration? Like, what's been the issue with like these small islands? I just don't think of people just knocking down all the trees on small islands and terrorizing it with humans. I think of what scale are we looking at, and what was the core issue with these islands that you work on?
Well, it all depends on the context, but like, degeneration has been going on for hundreds and even thousands of years. So most of our clients, when they come to us with a place that is not in the best condition you can hope for. And a lot of the time it has been overgrazed. Sometimes there has been forest fires, or there has been like very heavy farming going on for the last decades, and creating just like a toxic wasteland. And then we need to find the best strategies to regenerate that land. And that's not always easy, but it is always possible, providing you um, sometimes needs patience.
So these would be governments that are coming forward or private organizations.
Mostly actually private entrepreneurs. So we do work together with governments from time to time, and we have good relationships with them. But we don't have a lot of our clientele as governments, because in our experience with governments, like 75% of the work is bureaucracy if you work together with governments, and
Yeah.
25% is actually doing the real work. Any other scenario, if you have like just regular clients, then maybe 10% or 1 to 10% is bureaucracy, and then 90% is doing the real work. Things go much faster, less decision makers. So we do prefer to work
Yeah.
with private landowners, or with communities, or with companies who can like make quick decisions, because there's nothing as hateful as having to go to 20 meetings and don't advance an inch.
So you are seeing people, private landowners and stuff, that are coming forward and recognizing there's an issue with
Oh
their
yeah.
land, with their existing practices, and they want to make a change.
Yeah, and not only that. So a lot of Landowners are actually pretty happy with their land because not all our clients' lands are totally degraded. Some of them just want to like do more and do better and say, okay, we have this beautiful pasture, but why not add an extra layer of a food forest to it, or agroforestry, or create a better rotational grazing system, or have a better overall design of the property? Or we have a lot of clients in the hospitality industry as well, where they have a hotel or a bed and breakfast or a retreat center or a seminar center, or like business incentives. And yeah, and there they say, okay, we just want to give like a better experience to our guests.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can really go the extra mile and do amazing crazy stuff that really just blow the clients away if they come. And then you have something really unique and something that people will remember and talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And we love to use food as a connector in our landscapes. For example, if you have a business incentives, and instead of just giving them the traditional like water with some cucumbers inside of it, they, let's say, put lavender inside of it, or like another herb they grown, or something that comes from trees, and give them chestnut cookies, or
Yeah.
or like delicious stuff that's been grown on the site itself. They'll never forget that. and
Yeah.
and that's what you want to create as a hospitality person. You want to create experiences that people will just, yeah, always remember, and will be like, oh wow, nice, I want to come back,
Yeah.
or I'm gonna tell my friends and family about it. And I think that's like maybe, then maybe to end this podcast, like a more spiritual thing.
Yeah.
We've been giving this beautiful paradise, this Garden of Eden. We kind of screwed it up along the way, but now we have the chance and the ideal conditions to just recreate that Garden of Eden. It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing it all over the world, and it's just beautiful to see how much happier the people are, how much more life in the communities there is. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
How much of your work goes into, avoiding invasive species and being careful not to go and screw up everything else around because you're trying to get these cover crops and these hedges and all this stuff. You obviously have to be pretty darn careful what you introduce to those environments.
Yeah, we are careful about invasive species, but sometimes they are there. What we do see is that most invasive species come because people screwed it up.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only thing that is like so stubborn enough to survive in the toxic wasteland we created are invasive species. So
Yeah.
here again, and it's not the fault of the invasive species, it's the fault of humans, like screwing up the land. A very nice book written about it, it's The New Wild by Fred Pierce, for example. And but we do are very careful, of course, not to introduce, especially on islands, like an invasive species. We're not afraid of exotic species though, so we're not like these purists and say everything needs to be native, because like
Mm-hmm.
if you have to eat like only a native diet, you wouldn't be eating that much. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all about the healthy balance. Some people claim that invasive species will save the world, um, and in some contexts, I believe that invasive species can help us as humans, can help
Mm-hmm.
like regenerate the landscape. But as you can say, it can also screw up a landscape.
And now you're on a mission to regenerate, what is it, 500 million acres or something? You want to really make a big difference. So, how have you started that? How has your journey been so far in that? And what does the future have for you on that mission?
Yeah. So the number actually is 1 billion acres. It's
A billion. There
550.
we go.
It's 550 million hectares of land. That's what you need to
There we
cool
go.
down the planet with 2 degrees Celsius. Um, I think we just all have to start with like 1 square meter.
Mm-hmm.
Just start what you can start with, and yeah, grow. Like I remember, like the first client I had was like just a small garden. I did some consulting, and little by little we were doing bigger and bigger stuff, and now we're doing entire islands. It doesn't come overnight, and so I think we have to dream very big, be very ambitious, but also enjoy the roads to yeah.
So would you be opposed to, we're not in a natural warming cycle. This is human interference. That's your stance there, because I think I heard that somebody say that prior to the Industrial Revolution, we actually had warmer periods in our climate. So what are your thoughts there on natural cycle versus human interference with the global temperature?
Well, the science is super clear. The current global warming is caused by humans. There is no doubt about that. If you look at scientific evidence, then it all points towards that humans created the global warming. But it is true that there has been global warming before, and there has been ice ages
Mhm.
before. The only thing is, for the last 12,000 years, temperatures have been staying like super stable. um it's like this giant flat thing. And now, like, since the industrial revolution has started, whoop, it's like going up crazy exponentially. So for the last
Mhm.
12,000 years, all big civilizations have formed, culture has formed, and we agriculture came to exist thanks to that stable temperature. Now we're going into a zone no living human has ever gone before, or no human ever that existed in the lifetime of this planet has ever gone before. So we're going there, not knowing what's going to happen. But what is going to happen? It's going to shake the the jar that we are living in. And if you have 100 black ants and 100 red ants living in a jar together, they live peacefully. But if you shake the jar, they go and start killing each other because they think they've been attacked by the others, but they didn't know that their jar has been shaked, or has been shaken. And that's what's happening. The yeah the global warming is gonna shake this jar, so we better um, embrace our neighbors, uh, embrace our family, connect with people around us. So if the jar is going to be shaken, we're not going to see each other as enemies, but going to see each other as allies.
Yeah, I hope that shift takes place, because we definitely need that in the world more than ever. But I think we'll end it there. So I just want to thank you for your time and your insight on this entire topic. It was definitely informational for me. I learned a lot. So thank you very much for coming on.
Well, it's been a true pleasure. I'm very happy to meet a Saskatchewanian again.
Yeah,
It's so nice to go back in memory lane for that. And thanks for the interesting questions. Really enjoyed it.
you bet. Well, I'll let you know when we publish, and take care.